and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and today we are going to be discussing a couple of items from Cle de Peau. Cle de Peau has recently come out with a brand new foundation, and as soon as I saw it available for pre-order on Nordstrom, I knew I wanted to try it. So this is the new foundation. It is the Radiant Fluid Matte Foundation, and they've also released some new shades in their cult favorite product, the concealer. So we're going to be discussing these today, and I do have some details I'd like to go over with these items. So I have been wearing them for several days now, and I have tested them pretty thoroughly. I have a wear test to show you. I also have some comparisons to show you as well. Today's video is in collaboration with my good friend Carolyn at CVMakeupLover. Now, as soon as Carolyn saw this foundation and the concealer, she knew she wanted to have it also, because this concealer is something that she has been wanting to try for ages, but unfortunately they had a very narrow color range and there wasn't a match for her. So thankfully now that they have expanded this color range, Carolyn has been able to find a match. So Carolyn and I are both incredibly excited to be able to go over these products with you. And if you are not familiar with CVMakeupLover, I would definitely head over there. Carolyn also reviews luxury makeup items, and she does purchase some products that I don't have. She does have a deeper skin tone than I do, and I just think it is so valuable to get as many opinions on a product as possible before purchasing, and I think her input is very valuable. Another thing to note about Carolyn is she's a huge Chanel fan, and she has a gorgeous Chanel collection, and if you're interested in Chanel, I would definitely check her out. And you can just like marvel at the things she has or compare them to what you have yourself. So her Chanel collection is definitely more expensive than mine is. So thank you so much, Carolyn, for doing this video with me. I'm so excited to be able to share my opinions with all of you and to be able to direct you to somebody who also is able to offer their opinions as well. Let's go ahead and start discussing the actual products. Now, the foundation is 35 milliliters or 1.1 ounces. It is made in the USA, and this is a Radiant Fluid Foundation Matte with broad spectrum SPF 20 sunscreen. I'm going to read to you the little blurb on the back of the box. It says, "Define your most radiant, most colorful life. A liquid foundation inspired by the radiance of a diamond drapes a subtle veil of light over a matte finish. It's a hybrid of makeup and skincare. Exclusive light empowering enhancer amplifies your radiant finish. Formulated with skin empowering illuminator, our exclusive skincare ingredient." And it does mention that reducing the quantity of application will lower the level of sunscreen protection significantly. So they do want to make sure that if you're counting on this for SPF protection, that you really pile the product on. Now, for SPF, the main ingredient here for sunscreen is titanium dioxide, and it's a 6.6 concentration, 6.6%. There is also zinc oxide present in the ingredients list, and I will have all ingredients listed down below in the description box. Now, the box itself has your traditional Cle de Peau coloring with the navy blue and the gold on the sides, and then the actual bottle that it comes in is this really heavy frosted glass bottle. And I purchased shade I-10, Very Light Ivory, and this is the shade that I wear in the Cle de Peau Radiant Cream to Powder Foundation, which I absolutely love. So as soon as I saw this, I knew I wanted to try that because the Radiant Cream to Powder Foundation is definitely one of my favorites. Honestly, I try not to use it too much just because it's supposed to be refillable, but they still haven't produced refills, and I've had it for about a year or so now. So I'm trying to kind of wait a little bit, but I know I need to use it before, it goes bad. By the way, expiration date for this one expires in 2022, so it doesn't have the traditional symbol with like an actual month or year amount, but it does give you an actual year end date. And keep in mind, although some products can last past the expiration, if you are counting on sunscreen protection and so forth, you should try to stick within that guideline. Now, for me personally, with this sunscreen, I would not count on a foundation as sunscreen protection. I wear a separate sunscreen underneath my foundation pretty much every day. And I just think that with base products in particular, less is always more. So there's just no way I can use a full pump of this product. I use probably not even a half pump. Let me just show you real quickly what a full pump is. This is a full pump. And I use maybe a third of this to, you know, I don't think I can even get to a half pump. So probably about a third that I use on my face. So I'm definitely not getting the sunscreen protection that is claimed on the box. Just another note, the expiration date is printed on the glass bottle, so don't feel like you need to save the box. The actual product here, again, I covered that we have this heavy duty frosted glass bottle, which looks very luxurious. I think it is a very nice package. Then we have the traditional Cle de Peau pump packaging here, and with the navy blue and the brighter gold here. And it does say Cle de Peau Beauté back here. And then we have the Cle de Peau symbol at the top. The concealer comes in a smaller all navy blue box. This one has broad spectrum SPF 25, and again, titanium dioxide is going to be your main sunscreen ingredient, and we're at a concentration of 1.6%. I purchased shade Ivory, which is the lightest. This is not one of the new shades, and I actually already had the Radiant Corrector for Eyes in shade Ivory, so I knew that this would be my closest match. The actual concealer comes in a small tube like this, and it looks more like a mini stick foundation. Sorry, I got one of my hairs on there. But we do have a stick product like this, and this is the product. This is 5 grams or 0.17 ounces. It's also made in the USA, and I don't actually see an expiration date anywhere on here. And one of the things that I found curious about this product is when you look at the box and you read the directions and suggested application, everything's discussing the sunscreen part of this product instead of the cosmetic qualities here. So for example, the directions, it starts off with use a water resistant sunscreen if swimming or sweating. It goes on to talk about, you know, what hours you should be in the sun and what, you know, SPF requirements you should use in addition to this product and so forth. So it doesn't really discuss makeup usage. Now, let me go ahead and swatch these items for you. This is the Radiant Corrector for Eyes in Ivory, and you can see that it's going to be significantly lighter. This product is similar to like the Stylo Lumiere from Sisley or the Le Camouflage Stylo from Chantecaille. However, it is going to provide more coverage than either of those products. It gives a little bit of illumination, but it does have a thicker consistency than those other 2 products that I mentioned, so you can get a little bit more coverage. This stick concealer is very interesting. So it goes on, you know, kind of like a thick, drier, like cream consistency, like you would expect from a stick foundation. And then what I have found that is best for me with this is to actually apply the stick to my finger and then pat it under my eye. I did try applying it straight from the stick to my eye. It's just way too much product. So I just dab a little bit on underneath, and after you wait a minute or 2, it melts into your skin. So with my initial application, it looks kind of dry and, you know, I can see, you know, all the lines and so forth. But then after a minute or 2, it really sinks in and looks a lot better. So this shade here in Ivory is a little bit deeper than I would prefer. If it had been this shade, it would have been pretty good. I would still personally prefer if they would come out with something a little bit lighter and a little bit cooler, but I think it still works well enough. Let me show you the foundation application. And what I want to show you with this is here's the color freshly upon application. There is very little to, if any, oxidation of this product. So what you first see is what you get, and I think that's really important to know when you're looking online and, you know, kind of shopping blindly nowadays for these products. So this color match for me is a fantastic color match. I have shade I-10. Another thing I'd like to mention about the sunscreen, now, as I mentioned, it has titanium dioxide. Zinc oxide is also listed in the ingredients. And those products can sometimes cause like flashback in photos or like a white cast. Now on my skin tone, I haven't noticed either of those issues. But if you do have a deeper skin tone than I do, you might want to check in on Carolyn's video and see if she had any issues with that, since she does have a deeper skin tone. But again, on my fair skin, no issues with a white cast or any flashback. So here are the swatches after a couple minutes. So you can kind of see that there really hasn't been much color change at all. This might have gotten slightly darker, but definitely nothing significant. And overall, I think the color match for the foundation in I-10 is a great match. Again, the concealer I wish was a little bit lighter and cooler toned. Now, before we discuss my thoughts and opinions on these products, I'm first going to show you an all-day wear test of the foundation. And the wear test, I used primer on one side, no primer on the other, and I did not powder my face at all. And then I'm also going to show you a quick comparison between this foundation and the Cocondo Aqua foundation. Then I'll meet you back here. For our wear test today, I'm going to use the Surat Perfectioniste Primer on the right side of my face. We'll just see if this makes a difference. All right, so the primer has set for a minute, and you can see this side is definitely gonna be a little bit more matte than this side. So let's go ahead and we'll apply. Oops. I'm using the Toyota Fupa 03 brush. And here is the foundation without the primer. And here it is with the primer. And I can tell you right off that it was easier to apply the side with the primer. The side without, it just kind of seemed to soak up the foundation a little bit more. So the coverage, I felt like I had to apply a little bit more to get similar coverage on the cheeks than I did on the side with the primer. And it just spread a little bit better with the primer underneath. So my thought is this side would be more similar to oily skin, because my moisturizer and stuff today, although it had been on for about half an hour, 45 minutes so far, you know, it's still really dewy. So I think, you know, this would be similar to what it would look like on somebody with oilier skin. And here we go. So let me apply the concealer and we'll see what that looks like. So here's the concealer, and this is shade Ivory, and I just got a little bit on my fingers. And you can see the coverage between the two. Now this looks pretty yellow at the moment. You can kind of see the concealer, but after a few minutes, it kind of melts into the skin, and I think it looks a lot better after a few minutes. Okay, it's been just about a minute, and you can see that the concealer looks a little bit better. Let me move you in close so you can see it. Here is the side with the primer, and you can see the concealer there. And here's the side without the primer. So I think overall the finish on both sides looks pretty similar with or without the primer. And you can see the coverage of the concealer. Hi everyone, it has been a little bit over 5 hours since I applied the foundation, and I did add a little makeup. I didn't put on any powder or anything, but I do have the Kjaer Weis Blush and Blossoming here, along with the Ritual de Fille Ice Bow highlight here. But other than that, nothing is touched on the rest of my face. Everything is just the same as the application this morning. And this is the side with the Surat Perfectioniste Primer, and the left side of my face has no primer. So from a distance, I think the foundation has held up fairly well. You don't really see too much. It definitely doesn't look matte anymore. And I do feel a little tackiness to my skin. Yeah, so just a little bit there. It's a little, you know, a little oily-ish. So let me take you in closer so you can see an up close look. So this is the side of the face without any primer. And this side has the Surratt Perfectionist primer. And I don't really notice a difference, like an appreciable difference between either side. I think both of them have held up equally well. As you can see, the skin definitely looks dewier than it did, when I first applied it this morning. Again, I have not used any powder at all. So perhaps if I set this with powder, it would last a little bit longer. That more matte look would last. So I will try that another time. We'll see how that goes. But the dewiness doesn't concern me on my skin type. It's not going to turn into like a complete oil slick or anything. And I don't think it will, at least. But people with oily skin, it may be a concern because my skin is normal, sometimes slightly dry. Right now it's pretty normal since it's still warm and humid out, but I didn't expect it to turn quite so dewy. So from a distance, I think it looks pretty good, but I did want to bring your attention to this area here around my lips. So you can see that there is some gathering of the foundation on both sides. And it's just, it's not great. But again, it's not something you would notice unless you got up close. But I did want to make sure I shared that with you. Hi, it has been just under 11 hours. And this is how it has worn throughout the day. So basically, I feel like it's the same as it was at the last check-in. Nothing else has changed. I still have it's a little bit dewier than I expected, but I love the actual finish of it. And I think from a normal distance, it looks amazing. Actually, up close, it looks really good too. It's just, those few spots I showed you during the last check-in, they're still there. They look exactly the same. They haven't changed. I'm gonna move you in closer so you can get a better look at the concealer and my face. This is the side of my face without any primer, and here is the concealer. You can see that it really has sunken into the skin well. And you can see right around the mouth, it gathered a little bit, but it wasn't anything major. It just, it didn't get worse. So I'm okay with that then. And here's the concealer on this side, and this is the side with the primer. And again, I think both sides look pretty much the same with and without the primer. So that is everything. All right, so it has been 14 hours since I applied the foundation, and overall everything is still pretty much the same as it was at the last check-in. I do feel like it has faded a little bit on my cheeks, but nothing really significant. Otherwise, everything really has held up pretty much the same. It's pretty nice. So let me take you in close so you can get a closer look. Here is the side without the primer. And you can see even around the mouth, it's the same as it was before. Concealer seems about the same. No real issues here. And then over here on the side with the primer, again, around the mouth is about the same. And there we go. So I'm a little warm right now, so my cheeks are a little bit more pink due to warmth, but it's, I do feel like it has faded just a touch here, and that's probably from my children. So I'm going to put the new Cle de Peau Foundation on the right side of my face and the Cogendo Aqua Foundation on the left side of my face, so you can kind of see some of the similarities between the two of them. And here are the two foundations. So this side here is the Cogendo. And you can see when you look at the Cle de Peau that they both have a very similar amount of coverage. The actual texture of the two foundations is very similar, and the way they apply is very similar. The Cle de Peau has more of a matte finish, whereas the Cogendo is going to be a bit more luminous, a little bit more glowy looking. While we're doing side-by-sides, I'm going to do a side-by-side with the Cle de Peau concealer pen. This is the Radiant Corrector for Eyes, and this is the shade Ivory. So I'll put this over here on, well, we'll put this on the Cogendo side. You can see the amount of coverage you get from this. Although it is in a corrector pen style like the Sisley Stylo Lumiere and the Chantecaille Le Camouflage Stylo, this one does have more coverage than either of those. And the texture of the actual fluid inside is very silky. So it's a little bit thicker, but you know, the actual texture of it isn't super thick or anything. It's still a pretty thin fluid, but it just has this really silky texture and it does provide more coverage. Let's compare it to the concealer. So it's called the concealer. And this is the one that has like a cult following. And I'm using the shade Ivory in both of these. So same shade for both products. This is going to give you even more coverage than the concealer pen. And I have tried applying this directly from the tube, which is fine also, but I just don't like to put on that much concealer. And you can see that the color is a little bit more yellow looking than the liquid is upon application. And I'm gonna let this sit for a minute, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna show you, like you can see now, it looks okay. But the color just isn't perfect. I'm gonna let it sit for a minute and then I'll come back and show you the color then. After sitting here for a minute, let's take a look at the concealer. So you can see that the color, it's still not a perfect shade for me, but it has kind of melded in with my skin a little bit. So, you know, I think it looks a little bit better color-wise. It's kind of like it just kind of sinks in a little bit more. And then if you look at the actual coverage, you've got more of a full coverage. And again, the actual texture of it has kind of melted into my skin a little bit to give you a little bit more of that flawless finish. And if you compare it to the Radiant Corrector for Eyes, you can see that this is definitely going to be a little bit more of a dewy coverage, and it goes really well more with like a dewier foundation versus the matte foundation over here. So I think pairing these together the way that I have them is a better combination for the two of them. And also now that the foundation has kind of been on my skin for a few minutes, you can see a little bit more the effect of the finish. So this is the Cogendo Aqua with a little bit more of a more dewy, luminous look to it. And this is the Cle de Peau. And you can see that this is definitely going to have a little bit more of a matte finish. And there you go. I hope those were helpful. Now, I first want to talk about the comparison to the Cogendo Aqua Foundation. As soon as I started applying this foundation, the Cle de Peau, I knew that it was very similar to the Cogendo Aqua Foundation. Not only in formula, because the way that it feels texturally is very similar. They're both on the thinner consistency side. The Aqua is slightly thinner than that, but as soon as you put it on, just the general look and appearance you get from both of these foundations, they are very similar. Now, the Cogendo is also going to be a radiant finish, but it's a little bit more radiant than the Cle de Peau, and that's because the Cle de Peau does have that matte base. And when you first apply the Cle de Peau foundation, you do see a little bit more of that matte finish, but as you saw during the wear test, the longer it's out of my skin, the more radiant it got. And again, that was without using any powder. I've also tried it with powdering the face, setting the foundation essentially, and that definitely keeps it a little bit more matte throughout the day, but it's never going to be a dry matte. It's always going to have a subtle radiance to it. So today I do have powder on it, and you can see it's a lot more matte looking. I've actually had it on for several hours at this point, so you can see that it will stay a bit more matte with the powder than it does without. Let's go ahead and discuss my thoughts on this foundation. And I think this foundation is incredible. I love it. It's probably not a surprise because I love the Kojendo Aqua, and I find this to be very similar, but just slightly more matte than that. Now, one thing to note is this does have a fragrance. So it's not strong, it's a subtle fragrance, but if you're familiar with Cle de Peau products, they all pretty much have some sort of fragrance or scent to them. And I did pick that up as soon as I opened that. So it was something that I noticed as soon as I started applying it, but it goes away pretty much right away. So it's not something that's you're gonna continue to smell throughout the day. But just know that there is a fragrance in this product, whereas the Kojendo does not have a fragrance. Now, personally, I really love this foundation. I think it has a gorgeous finish. It lasts really well. You can see from the wear test that I did have a little gathering of product in the lines, and that does happen with me sometimes with foundations. And, you know, I guess I just need to apply less product in that area to kind of solve that issue, but it didn't get any worse throughout the day. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the actual foundation. Now, is this worth, this retails for $130. Is this worth $130? And to answer that, I think it's really going to depend on your skin tone. If you are somebody who has an oilier skin tone, from what I understand from friends of mine who have oilier skin, the Aqua Foundation, you know, can be a little bit too radiant, whereas this with the matte base would be a better option. So I think if you do have oilier skin than I do, this would probably be a very good option. However, if you're looking for something similar, the Kojendo Aqua is a less expensive product, and it's still expensive. It's $77. And this one it's 30 milliliters. So we're about the same size, but it is going to be less expensive, and it does not have any added fragrance. So if I had to pick between the two, I would go with the Kojendo Aqua. However, this isn't going to work for everybody, even though it technically says all skin types. I know people who have said their face just gets too oily with this. So in that case, I would recommend trying this. So overall, do I like this foundation? I absolutely do. I think it has a gorgeous finish. I love the way it looks on my skin. I personally prefer the more powdered finish because you still get some luminosity from the foundation, but it does look a little bit more matte, which is my preference during these still warmer months. And during the winter, I think, you know, the powder may not be necessary. So yes, I love this foundation. Do I think it's worth $130? I think that is a personal decision. And, you know, I think you kind of have to look closely and see whether or not you can find a good color match in the Kojendo Aqua, because they do have a very similar texture and feeling on the skin. Just some notes about product application with this. It does have that thinner consistency, and Cle de Peau recommends using a brush for application. And the main reason that they are recommending a brush is because they released some new foundation brushes with this. So of course they recommend using one of their new foundation brushes with this product. It's not necessary to use a brush if you are somebody who prefers a sponge. Works just fine that way. I personally do prefer to use a brush, and I really like the Chikuhodo T11 and the Koyoda Fupa 03, which is a synthetic brush, but many other brushes work just fine. I have not found anything that affected application with this. It goes on so easily. You really don't need a lot, and you have pretty good coverage with this. So I would say that it's medium coverage with a light layer, so you could go ahead and build this up to full coverage if you wanted to. Now, one thing to note is that with a product like this that has that thinner consistency and still provides like a medium coverage, before you want to go ahead and add on more foundation What you really want to do is let that set for a minute or two before adding another layer, or it's just going to end up looking cakey and kind of like gather in spots that you don't want it to gather a little bit more easily. So if you are trying to build it up to full coverage, I would definitely recommend letting it sit for a minute or two between layers, and do thin layers with this. Definitely thin layers. This is not a foundation that you can apply a lot to your face at once and kind of spread out and have it look good, because in my opinion, it's gonna look like a mess. So thin, light layers, you can build up with this if you'd like to. Onto the concealer. And I really like the formula of this concealer. I can see why it is a favorite for so many people. The way that it kind of melts into your skin is incredible, and it really provides a lot of coverage. Now for me, I am not thrilled with the color match. It's a little bit warm, a little bit too yellow for me, and I wish it were a little bit lighter. Does that mean I'm not going to use it? No, I can still use it. I think if I use a light enough layer, then that's fine. And another thing that I found that works really well for me is applying this and then using a product like one of the by Terry CC serums, or where is it? The Chanel Rosy Light Drops. If I just tap a little bit of this on top of the concealer. So I put on the concealer, let it sit for a minute or two so it kind of melts into my skin. And then I take just a very little bit of this on my finger and tap it over it. It kind of counteracts that, more yellowish look to it. And it gives me a little bit of radiance there while I'm still keeping that coverage. And you can set this concealer with powder. I did today, but you don't have to. And, it really, you can see in the wear test that it lasts really well. So I really like the formula. I like the product. I wish I didn't have to do anything extra to get the perfect color match for me, but let's face it, everybody's skin tone, there are so many millions and billions of skin tones out there. Everybody's gonna have to do something like that with some products. So not a big deal. In summation, I really do enjoy both of these products. The Cle de Peau Foundation, I love. It is a little bit more radiant than I was expecting. But when I love the way it looks all day if I set it with powder. I think if I don't set it with powder, it gets a little bit too radiant looking for me. But I love the actual product, and I love the color match that I was able to get from here. And as I mentioned, I really love the formula of the concealer, and I don't mind making a little addition with my Chanel Rosy Light Drops to, make the color a little bit more perfect for me. But I'm very glad that they expanded their shade range so that more people are able to enjoy this product, because I think it does have quite a big following for a reason. And if you're looking for a more full coverage concealer that really kind of stays put throughout the day, this is a fantastic option. Before I sign off for today, I'm gonna just give you a couple of color comparisons of the foundation. Just a few shade comparisons from some other products I have. Right here, the top swatch is the new Cle de Peau Foundation in shade I-10. Right below that, and I have a heavier swatch on the side here and sheared out a little bit more on this section. But this one here is going to be the new Cojindo Moisture Foundation in shade 012. And right below that, we have the Cojindo Aqua Foundation in shade 002. Then we have the Guerlain L'Essentiel Foundation in 00N. And last up, we have the Surratt Dewdrop Foundation in shade 1.5. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions about the products, please let me know. I'd be happy to help in any way. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And make sure you hit that notification bell. Again, if you haven't already checked out Carolyn's video, please make sure you head over to her channel and let her know that I sent you. And if you're here from Carolyn's channel, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you decide to stick around. That's it for me today. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video.